Welcome back to Get Paid for Your Pad. Today, my special guest is Alex DeCamp. He's the founder of Great Stays in Detroit, Michigan. And today we're going to learn all about his journey. He's been in the space for quite a while, and he's one of our revenue management clients. So I'm excited to dive in. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Hey, Jasper. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. How are things going in the north, in Detroit?
Things are going. It's interesting because talking with you and talking with some other folks, right now we're kind of seeing some of the markets get hit with vacation, with travelers, with tourism. But Detroit has a pretty steady business travel environment, so we've kind of maintained. The market is down a little bit, but I'm sure this is good for revenue management. We're beating the market, so I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. For context, we're in 36 different markets right now. And I would say out of the 36, probably 30 are probably down like anywhere from like 10 to 30%. Yours is actually one of the exceptions, I'd say. Like you said, you're maybe down a little bit, but it's not nearly as bad as in a lot of other markets in the States. Probably, like you said, like because of those business travelers. See fewer Canadians coming down, because I know Detroit is like literally on the Canadian border, right?
Everything, I don't have hard data for this, but it does seem like that. And I do remember, there are things that affect us, right? The fire or the Heathrow was shut down in London, of all places. That affected us. But I did see a lot of cancellations a couple months ago. I don't remember the exact timing, but March was doing really, really well. And then at the very end there, we had a lot of cancellations. This was before the impact of the tariffs in early April. But it does seem like we have fewer Canadian travelers. And for reference, I can see, not from my front porch, but I can go down 2 blocks and I can see Canada because we're right there on the river. And so a lot of folks just don't, they're finding other places to visit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because we're in some Canadian markets, and some of those markets are looking really strong actually this year. I was looking at some markets like Canmore and Newfoundland, and we're actually seeing a pretty strong increase in travel over the summer there. So it sounds like some Canadian people might be choosing to travel within the country versus coming to the States. So that's just one of the trends that we're seeing. And short-term rental world is never a dull moment. Everything changes so fast, right? It's I guess that's also the exciting part. But let's go back and tell us your story. Like, how did you get started initially with short-term rentals?
Sure, I'll try to keep it brief. But I've been in the city for a little while now, and I was a former corporate banker of all things. I worked on small business development. I actually had a really cool position where I got to support small business, support nonprofits, create lending programs for the city. But that whole time, I also started to develop or redevelop some real estate. So I purchased properties that were vacant, dilapidated, and with partners and partner, we would renovate these into either small multi-unit buildings, mixed-use buildings, houses, and whatnot. And some of my tenants actually early on, this is 2016, we had folks reach out to us who kind of were early to the scene, especially in this market. And they rented a few units from us, and they did lease arbitrage, right? So they'd rent from us and they'd do it. And it kind of piqued my interest a little bit. And I connected with somebody who was a good manager. And it's funny, he had one of the best producing units, or one of the highest rated, I guess, in the state. And he was a photographer, and he was one of the first people out here. This was back in the day when people didn't think to use professional photography. And so he did that for his unit, and it just, it really did well. And so he came out, his wife was a designer. They designed, and we turned one of my apartments into a unit, and I really liked it. And around that time, somebody who rented from us and had multiple units as short-term rentals, her boots on the ground person was her brother. He had to leave town. And so she could only maintain a few of them. And so she had a portfolio of 6 or 7 of our units that were furnished, were ready to go. And so I had this small company, and I took them over. And before I knew it, I had a small portfolio, and it just started growing. And a friend reached out to me and he asked if I could manage his, and I started managing for other people and created my own company. So at first I just managed for my partnership, our properties, and then realized, that was when I was doing a lot of work. That was when I was answering every message. I was doing everything. And once I started taking on more properties and incorporate it into its own business, that's when I started to create the systems. And I worked with you guys. You guys actually helped me kind of evolve from, I would almost call it from like manual to automatic, or, just kind of upgrade.
Yeah, that was before we did the Legends X program, right?
Yeah.
It was back in 2020, I think it was, right during COVID, I think it was. we worked with you and a couple other private clients, and that was actually built our Legends X program on the back of kind of that experience of like
Yeah.
really understanding like, okay, what do these what do these people actually need? And that's
Yeah.
how we came up with the hectic hosts and like, okay, they need systems, team members, and they need a vision for what they're actually building, right? So that really became the Legends X program. So that's pretty cool. It was called the Boom program that we did.
Yeah, it was boom. A smart move because I paid for it, and then you guys create the program from it. But it made sense. And I saw that, and I stayed in touch, or I was part of Legends X, I think, with the community. And a lot of those folks, I've known a lot of those folks over the years. And if I went to a conference, I had friends. And in fact, there was even at one point a group of us who we all knew each other because of Legends X. We met up and we created our own weekly call where we just would call and discuss things. That kind of faded, but that was great, and that really kept me kind of up to date with tech. And a lot of people could, if there was something that you wanted to know about, chances were one of us had done it already.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. There's still multiple of those groups going, which it's been a while since we've ran Legends X, but it still lives somewhere in little groups
Well,
that we're not even aware of.
I mean, this gets lonely. Small business is lonely, right? You think that you're the only one that has these problems, and then you talk to, or has these issues, not problems, and you talk to other folks, and turns out they're going through the same thing. So it feels good. Sometimes you just want
Yeah.
to vent, but really, it's help kind of create the steps or create the processes.
Yeah. So your story is pretty typical in the sense that, it seems like no one wakes up one day and says, hey, you know what? I'm going to build a short-term rental property management company, right? You always kind of roll into it somehow, kind of randomly, right? With starting with like one property, two property, and suddenly you see the opportunity. So you started your company back in, well, what did you say, 2016?
Well, so technically my company started in 21, but I had been running our properties since 2019. And it's funny because I took over a bunch, at the end of 19, I went out. This is what really kind of the light bulb turned on. I flew out to London for a conference, short-term rental conference. Can't even remember the name of it. And it was there that I saw the tech that people were implementing into, and not just the software, but the hardware as well. Locks that would notify the cleaners when the person checked out, exit codes, automations. And this is, it's only 5 years ago, but it's still pretty early on. And I was like, wow, this is something you can do. This is something you can create, because I'd been doing development. I've been working at the bank, and a lot of my stuff was putting out fires or dealing with specific issues or projects where this was more like, I could automate this. And the automation aspect of it has always been intriguing. I love the idea of kind of having something, you push one button and it flows, or somebody sends an email and it flows. And so I've tried to build that. Now, it's not the easiest. I'm not a tech guy, but I have been pretty lucky that I found some software that's helped me along the way. And early on, I think a lot of it, I remember you had like a tech page or something, like a tech stack page early on, and I would pour over that, like, all right, do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? And I love some early on with some of those groups. I really enjoyed it and created some good programs.
Yeah. And as you were building your company, did you still have your 9 to 5 job as well?
Yeah. So that really worked out for me. So with banks, they merge, and I was with the bank for a while, and we were on our fourth merger. And I had started Boom in the beginning of that year, and the beginning of the year, like January. And with the plans of, I think Eric was who I worked with all the time. I was like, all right, in October, this is when I'm going to step down. I'll put in my 2 weeks or whatever it was I needed to do. And around May or June of that year, April maybe, with our merger, my department kind of was rolled into another. So I had the option. I could either apply to a different department, and I had no idea what this would look like. Headquarters was in a different state, different style, management style, or I could take a pretty nice little exit package. And so basically, I was like, well, I was planning on leaving in a few months anyway. So that was very lucky for that year. So I took that package, and basically, could work on my business full time. I also kind of stayed, as a consultant I wasn't a paid consultant, but I would still, people would reach out for me for a while. So it kind of worked out. And I don't, today, with how I have things set up, I could work a 9 to 5 probably. I would have to rearrange some things and think about, certain life choices. But back then, it was getting to be a lot. I remember sitting in my office one day, and I was dealing with this double booking or something that happened. I can't remember what it was. I was giving refunds, back to somebody because I had to move them. And at the same time, I had a project and I was talking to my boss. And then at the same time, I was dealing with a development project. And it was just so much. And I couldn't, you can't keep that up forever. Funny thing is that I remember that booking because I double booked a late booking. It was 2020. And I sent them, I don't know what I did for why I did this, but I somehow sent them money as like a, sorry, you can book this one. And so they received funds before I was paid or whatever it worked. Well, everything was canceled with COVID. So there's somebody out there who never booked with me who received a couple $100 or whatever it was, paid not to stay.
Well, if you believe in karma, you'll probably get it back somehow, sometime.
Maybe.
So you've been out of the 9 to 5 for about 5 years now.
Yeah, 4 years. I think 21 was the year that it, maybe 21, maybe my math's wrong. I did boom and maybe it was 21 or something, but yeah, 4 or 5 years.
How's that been transitioning from 9 to 5 to fully working on the business?
Well, the 9 to 5, I mean, that's a loose term too, because it was, my job was very social. So I was, I'd get there at 9 usually, but I would also be working late and I would be in and out of the office. But so I've never actually truly had like that. I have to sit there at the clock in, clock out. I mean, I've had maybe when I was younger or certain jobs like construction or something like that. So I guess I have, but in recent years, there's a lot of discipline, I guess you could say, because you can always say yes to things, but if you're saying yes to something, you're saying, that's a no for something else. So scheduling, work hours, when do I do that? What do I do? Do I dedicate time for health and wellness? It's, that's always been a thing. As you know, I've been lucky. I've been able to travel a lot, and I was always able to travel before, but the difference is, can you travel and actually enjoy it? Or do you travel and you're working the whole time? I have the tendency to, if I sit down and start working on something like a deep work or I get into something, I lose track of time. And, before I know it, I'll check my watch and I've been sitting for 3 hours straight. So like, I think
that happened to me today.
Yeah. Right. So so I don't want to travel and have that happen. The last thing I want to do is, be somewhere very nice and be sitting in my hotel room. The last trip I did, I actually did that the first day only. And, I was in there for 3 hours and I missed part of a tour or something like that. Really so because of that though, I've created systems where I can mostly, and this is during the week and this is when I'm out of town or whatnot, the difference between, like I said, I could potentially do a 9 to 5 now with the business. I really automated a lot of what we do, messaging. I have a team of virtual assistants that are on 24/7. I have cleaning software that, we monitor the cleans. The VAs have to review the cleaning reports. I've been growing my maintenance team now for a scenario like who gets contacted first. Can the cleaners do it? Can the maintenance? Is it, threat level where I have to get involved? Really, the systems I have allowed me to, I could sit and I could not do anything all day and everything would run, but that's not growth. That's just kind of staying where you are. So, but what's great about that is I can then monitor certain things and look for improvements, work on marketing, work on other programs or initiatives that can grow the business. Because that's where I really want to, I'm having some fun with, when I actually have that time for deep work, like what can I do to get out there?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And so when you're on a trip, like you don't necessarily have to be involved at all. Like the thing just kind of runs on autopilot unless there's like a red flag or something coming from your VAs or.
Yeah. Early on, I remember New Year's, I would literally park in front of a property and make sure there wasn't a party, back in the day. And now I'm out of town for some of the busiest. I've been out of town for some of our busiest weekends. We had the busiest record month. There's record month last month in May, and the busiest weekend is this big music festival in Detroit. And of 30 properties, we only had one issue. And that one issue was more of a working with a guest on something. And really that wasn't an emergency that had to be resolved anyway. I stepped in for that one, just post that, but it didn't really mess anything up. Here's an example. If I actually was involved in something on Friday, I was at a Tigers game, and afterwards Ludacris came out for a concert, free concert. It was great, but it was late. I got home around midnight, and there was an issue with one of our properties, and I got involved. And what did I do? Basically, the guest was unhappy with something, and some of it was warranted, some of it maybe wasn't. I'm not exactly. That's not the point. It was more about how my team was responding to it, and then working with Airbnb. This was an Airbnb booking. So I jumped in and I worked on this, and it was fine. It was, it was at night. I had just gotten home and I was plugging away and I was working on it. But from that, the next day, I wasn't angry that I was typing something at that time. I was actually excited because then I talk to my manager. I have a weekly meeting with the VA manager, and like, this is a new. So if what did we do from that? So the takeaway is I use ChatGPT to refine my, as you can tell, I talk a lot, and it kind of shortens up my messaging. So I use ChatGPT or AI to create a better argument or message when I talk to Airbnbs. Created a team login for them to use mine. And then there's this little section where you can create projects. And in the project, we create this thing that's basically speaks in my voice. And now they can go in there. And whenever they work with Airbnb, they go into that. And there's an SOP of how to enter. You fill out a form, put it in there, and it will create the argument for them. And it will either help or supplement what they have, or it will create all new, something new. But then in the future, we don't have to reach out to me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the process, right? Every time you have to step in, you create a system, give it to your team. And now with ChatGPT, it's so easy to create these systems, these SOPs. I mean, every single one of our processes, SOPs that we create now, they're all coming from ChatGPT. It's just like, literally, if I have to create a system, I pick up the phone, I say, all right, ChatGPT, here's what I do, here's how I do it, with a lot of detail. And then ChatGPT already knows like our format of our systems. So it automatically puts it in the right format, copy paste, boom, 15 minutes later, you got a whole new system. It's so nice.
It's amazing. Like, I have a project for SOPs as well. Like, I really do. And I do the same thing you just said.
Yeah. Oh my God. I remember the old days. It's only like, how long has it been? It's only been like a year or two. Yeah. But, the old days, like, I remember sitting in front of my laptop, just going line for line. Step 1, open this document. And then, you want to make sure we put all details in there. So it takes hours to create something really solid. It's so boring to do. I mean, ChatGPT is definitely my best friend.
It's great. And then you can even take it a step further. You can keep it all in like a AI based data, center or data or whatever it's called. And then you can have your team, moving forward, instead of having to look up the SOP and remember the SOP, they can just type in, hey, what is the thing that helps me with this? And then it releases the SOP to them. I mean,
yeah.
Use this tech. It's going to help out a lot.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, you recently told me that you were planning on opening up a laundromat.
Yes.
I think that I'm very interested in that idea. Like, walk us through that. Like, how did you come up with that idea?
So, it might've been on one of your shows. It was like a year or two that somebody mentioned it. I was like, that's an interesting idea. And I know they're kind of popular right now. They're one of those businesses, they're out there that folks have had for a long time, and there's ways to come in and automate it. But really what it was for me, it's like, why would I want to start a new venture? I don't see it as something different. I see it as kind of integrating, like, what is that? Vertical integration with of laundry for my company. So we do, like, say right now, it's 150 turns a month. And of those 150 turns, we're doing laundry. And I work with different cleaning companies depending on where my properties are. But right now, I have one company that does almost all of my properties, and their team fluctuates, and they go to a property, start the laundry, and do some prep work. Go to the next property, start the laundry. So they rotate. It's really a lot of wasted time, if you ask me. And there's also something there because they're jumping around, because we have checklists and everything, but the checklist is only dependent on, I'm sure they get distracted when they're bouncing from properties and things, might slip through. I thought, what if we could do laundry offsite? And it has multiple benefits. First of all, it shortens the time of the turnover. Instead of 2 hours, like, I swear sometimes they clean these things in 30 minutes, but the laundries adds another 2 hours. So we could shorten the time of the cleans, and then we could feel a little bit more comfortable offering early check-ins or late checkouts. Because that's something right now that we don't really, they might use this whole time frame to clean where they want it if laundry was offsite. Second is quality control. We deal with issues sometimes where there are hairs on the laundry. And one day we were getting issues with hairs. I'm like, this is wild. So I had all laundry dropped off at my house one day, and I did it personally. And I went through it, and I saw hairs stick to these things. And so but if you're rushed and you're going through, it can be, one hair could destroy a trip, right? So I thought, if we took it off site and we had tables, we had somebody doing it, this was their job, they're specifically looking over this, we could then help with quality control. And then there's the idea of cost. There's a percentage of the clean goes to the time dedicated to laundry. Well, I think looking at the services and having somebody do that, it's I didn't really like the cost, especially around here. So it would actually make sense that, if I had somebody that worked full time at the laundromat, they could handle that. So in the morning, we create bundles for everybody. So whatever check-in there is that day, whatever cleaning there is, cleaners can get these bundles and then go to the property, pull everything, put them in garbage bags or whatever it is. At the end of the day, just drop off those bags with that person at the laundromat, and they have it ready, for the next day. And it's better with organization, tracking. So, but I'm learning a lot about laundromats right now too. I was at yesterday. Is the water line large enough to support? It's fascinating how they actually measure like where to put one, the competition, credit cards, coins, stuff like that. But and it's wild because a lot of people are like, yeah, you got to use coins that way in a laundromat. You have cash. And going back to automation, I don't want that. I want, if I do that, then I have to go there and I have to dump coins every week or whatever it is and, collect them. I don't want to do that. And if I hire somebody to do that, like what's going to stop them from, misplacing a couple? So I'll do credit card. I'll do everything automated and, cameras, tech heavy and try to run it that way. That's just kind of part of bringing it. And another thing that kind of got me thinking about it was I walk literally right now. I have a guy fixing a washer at one of our properties. And if I can go to an owner and say, hey, look, there's wear and tear, there always is, but now we're not doing loads of laundry every single time we're turning these things over. Things probably don't even get used that often. I think that's a selling point.
Yeah, 100%. And then would you open up that laundromat to the public as well?
Yeah. So my company would be a commercial client of that laundromat, but I would have it to the public as well. Cause that, I don't want to spend a lot of time searching for commercial clients. Now you can have the commercial clients there as well. I don't want that to be the only thing because then it just becomes this large expense that could be supported by me. But, if I have it to the public, then this is better for cash flow. And those things actually, they project. There's a reason people are getting into them. They project very well.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. It's an extra revenue stream. It saves you money in your business. It helps you run your business more effectively, right? More efficiently. It makes a lot of sense. I know there's some other people in our community who've done that. So yeah. So when are you planning to get this going?
Well, so I'm looking for space right now. Yeah, one thing that I haven't really realized this until recently, but I was lucky. Coming from the banking world, I knew how to apply for loans. I knew how to get cash. So a lot of my development projects I could fund very easily. Not easily, but I could fund, and when others kind of don't know the move. So this one, it's SBA going through that whole process. But I need to find the location. I need to settle on it. It has to be perfect for me for what I'm looking to do. And what's great about this is going to be because right now I run, I have storage facilities at some of my properties or an extra room at properties, things like that. But I don't really have a central hub, and this is going to kind of create that. So for me, it has to be, the location has to be great. Can't be too far from where I'm at for my properties, but I'm looking now. So if I find a space I like, I'm going to start the lease negotiation and
right.
Trying to move
and
forward.
how does it work? Like you lease the space. Does it also include like the machines, or do you need to lease those separately? Like how does that work?
Yeah. So it depends on what you find. If I acquire the real estate, then I would just purchase the real estate, down payment, and then I'd build out the space. If I lease the space, there's working with the landlord, right? The landlord might give you TI or tenant improvement money, and we negotiate the rate, we negotiate how long I have to build it out, etc. Then the machines themselves, since I would be building new, by the way, if I were to come into one that's already existing, I'll talk what that looks like too. But since I would be building new, I would then work with the suppliers. Now the suppliers, they're these brokerage shops, and they help me out a lot. They're the ones that give me the pro formas and the numbers for how well the laundromat projects. So you work with them, and they'll usually do their own financing. Because they're selling you the machines. So you work with them. They've got the experts. So you've got financing from them. You've got the lease, and then depending on the build out of the property, you could theoretically have a loan with them as well. So when it comes to that, the lease is going to be paid for with cash flow, but you'll have either your own money or maybe a small business loan for the build out of the space. And then you'll have either financing, kind of like think of like auto financing from the auto dealer. Like that's what it would be for the machines, or you can have the small business loan cover that. You're going to have to determine what makes the most sense for rates and payments. Then if you want to buy one that's existing, that would be more, you'd probably just get one loan or cash or investors or however it works to cover it all, and then negotiate the lease or whatever they have with the owner. It's a little risky. You have a lease, you don't know exactly what if it's doing really well, and then the owner wants to increase rent on you, things like that. So you just have to look at that and make sure that you're protected in that case. But usually you'd want to sign like a longer lease then to protect yourself against that. or options.
One thing that I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this when you travel, but like I feel like in the US there's a lot of laundromats compared to other countries. Like where I'm from in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, I can maybe think of like a few, but like there seems to be a lot of laundromats in the bigger cities in the States. Any reason why that is? Like, do most people don't have their own washer dryer at home, you think?
I don't know. I feel like that's in development, in the last, what I've seen, everybody's including those. I'm not exactly sure why, compared to other countries, that would be that way. Maybe it's the how often we're cleaning things. Maybe it's just like a different style or lifestyle. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because when I travel, I'm always looking for a laundromat because laundry at the hotel is so expensive if you're staying in a hotel, right? And then if you have an Airbnb, if it doesn't have a washer and dryer, like where are you going to do your laundry, right? You're staying somewhere for like a couple months, and so I was always looking for laundromats. And in a lot of places that I used to live, they were very hard to find. When you walk around in like downtown any American city, like you see laundromats everywhere, right?
Yeah, it probably actually boils down to whether they're profitable or not. Right? If they were
Yeah.
profitable, they'd probably spring up more. I do know the last time I traveled in south of France, and we had 4-bedroom, nice place, and we couldn't find the washer and dryer anywhere. It was actually tucked away under a kind of countertop in a what looked like a cabinet. Like there was no way to know what it was, and I don't know why they didn't put it in the instructions. But when we found it, it was one of those ones that washes and dries.
Yeah.
So, I mean, could you imagine that for on a turnover? I mean, if you had 2 loads, you'd be screwed because those things take like 3 hours. There is that is different. Where I'm at, laundromats are kind of, I feel like a lot of times, I grew up, our washer broke for a while. I would go laundromat. There's always a place you try to get into and get out of. I do hear that in some cities, such as like New York, they're actually great places to meet people, and that they're doing things because a lot of those folks don't have laundry and a lot of people who use them. Even a small laundromat would be profitable out there and you can walk to it or whatnot. But now they're trying to compete with one another to get the business. And they're doing things like having nice, like craft coffee or DJs or whatever it is, like entertainment. So when you go there, it becomes an experience. And I think that's pretty interesting. That is one
Ah,
thing I'll
yeah.
say about it. I really want to make sure that whatever I open, people go there and they feel good about being
Yeah.
there. It's not just a bunch of machines stacked, against the wall.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, when you start a new business, it's always a good opportunity to see like, hey, can I create some innovation? Because essentially you're stepping into a new industry. So like just one thought that comes to mind here in Colombia, there's a mall and they have a place where you can bring your kids. They have a place where you can bring your dog. Like, you know what I mean? There's all these like little services that are very useful. So I was also thinking, I was at the airport in Bogota and they had like pool table, ping pong table. So while you're waiting for the airplane, I was playing ping pong with some 10-year-old Colombian kid, which was a lot of fun. But I was thinking too, as you're mentioning laundromat, like you got to wait, right? So what if you have like almost like a little bar or something where people can sit down, have a beer while they're waiting for their laundry, or you have some games or something for people to entertain themselves while they're waiting. That'd be
I
a lot of fun.
I agree. Or, if think about who's going to be there, find out who's there, find out who your avatar is. And, is it somebody with their kids? So let's do something to make sure that they can worry less about their kids while they're doing the laundry. Make sure, that I think at a minimum now you have to have Wi-Fi. And so if somebody's there waiting for a couple hours, what if somebody needs to do work or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Even if they just want to scroll, on their phone or whatever, just have
Yeah.
that.
Could even have like a couple desks set up or something that people can pay an extra $10 and you can use the desk for an hour or something like that.
Well, it is interesting, right? You can tell. I actually went around and I looked at for this one location. I looked at some of the competition, and some of these places, like they make it very uncomfortable to be in there. And there's this one that's doing very well in Southeast Michigan, and you look at their spot, and they have like not knitted, but like sofa chairs, where you can actually sit and relax and feel comfortable. And did it cost more? Sure. But people will drive past those other ones to get to that one just because they go in there and they don't want to be, they don't want to feel like they're not wanted. That's what I think, at least. And
Yeah.
I will say this, another business, I have no intention of getting in this business, but I went to a car wash, and I've been going to a few lately. And this one was super like neon lights, pink, light blue. And I have a moonroof, so you can see out of the car. And going through it, I felt like I was in like a disco club or something. It was fun. And I was like, this is great. Like this, I actually want to come back to this place. And
Right.
so I might take some hints from that and say, hey, let's just
Yeah.
make an experience. Who knows? Maybe if it works, you can do some other ones that are really different in design. But
Yeah.
we'll see how it works out. Probably at the end of the day, I'll be there fixing dryers and might not have the time to do it.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue into the last thing I wanted to discuss, because obviously through your short-term rental business, you've learned that it's all about the experience, and you can take that knowledge to the laundromat business of thinking of like, hey, how do I create an amazing experience for people that want to do their laundry, right? So I guess that's one learning lesson that you can take. What are some of the biggest learning lessons for you, like really all the way from starting your business to being where you are right now? What are some of the biggest takeaways and challenges that you faced?
Well, so the specific to the industry, communication is key. People are traveling. Think about how they could have been flying all day. They just get there. They're tired. Their kids are screaming, whatever the scenario is, and they show up and the place isn't clean, which is awful, or something doesn't work, or the gate it's tough to get into, like all of that stuff, right? So let's take that and let's fix that. Let's make sure just small things. Like it's funny, I've partnered with somebody and we're looking at other markets, of some very, very high end markets. And they're getting texts in the middle of the night dealing with stuff, or they have to change door codes manually. And I'm like, why are you doing this? And they were like freaking out. Oh, I forgot to send check-in instructions. Like, why? And like, not only should you have that automated or have the whole system set up, and I'm sure everybody does that, even if you're only on Airbnb, they have now AI things that can help you do that. But send it again 15 minutes beforehand, because I'll tell you what, that person's not going to want to scroll through everything and look for these check-in instructions. So basically, just try to, I don't want to say overwhelm, because then after a while people won't look at it, but get that out there, set the expectation, and then try to what is that? That's a platitude, or, everybody says this, over deliver, under promise, over deliver, but that's really how it is. If something's going to be a certain way at a property, let people know that. Don't hope that they won't see it, or don't act like it's the best thing. And then they get there, they're like, oh gosh, those were good pictures, but the place doesn't look good. I think that's the best for when you have guests coming in. Just put yourself in their shoes. But as a business owner, we've all talked about this, and there are lots of books about this, but it's the pulling yourself out of the daily. It's very easy for me to do stuff for the business because I'm faster at it. I might not be the best at it, but I'm fast. I can get it done. And I started to actually track when I'm on properties doing certain things, and starting to turn on my little tracker in Breezeway. And that way I can say, you know what, actually, I am spending time here, more time than I think. So one thing I did, I learned it from you guys. I created a whole list of, what gives me energy, what takes energy. Do I like doing this or not? That whole, like an energy audit / task list, and put it all together. Took me a while to do. Then fed it to AI, which created like a job description of who I need to hire. And that's how I'm making my moves forward. So since then, I've introduced maintenance folks to the team, and I've got a role that's kind of an operations manager that is going to come into play hopefully pretty soon once I hit some certain milestones. So the sooner you can realize for your business, the sooner you can offboard some of this stuff, or have somebody else run it for you, the sooner you'll be able to grow the business. And that is something that I still struggle with. Like I said, it's easy to run lean, but I am more and more realizing how valuable that time is, and how I could be spending it on turning this into following the vision and really implementing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I think that always will be a struggle for any business owner, because there's always like little problems and little things where it's just easy to just dive in and do it yourself, right? So I think that is the hardest part. But to your point of, you were saying like, hey, if I do it, there's no cost to it. I remember we had this thing in Legends X, I think it was called opportunity cost or something. And we had like buckets, like a $10 an hour bucket, $100 an hour bucket, $1,000 an hour bucket. And we had everybody like put everything you do into these buckets. And then essentially we would say, okay, well, if you're doing a $10 an hour task, like you're losing $990 because you could be doing something that drives like $1,000 an hour to your business, right? So we were trying to make that tangible of like, no, it's actually hiring yourself, doing it yourself is actually the most expensive option.
For sure. And it's really tough and it's not super easy. You don't just, snap your fingers and somebody's there, because it takes a while to train that person as well. And, that doesn't always work out, right? But it's just, we have to do it, and we have to get those folks in, and we have to guide them until they can basically run it for you. I will say this, I have one of the maintenance people I'm working with right now. He came highly recommended, and it felt so good. The other day we were working on something, and like he knew what to do, he had it done, and I was like, wow, this is great that this person figured it out, and they were able to kind of take it off my hands, and I don't have to worry about it. And not only that, but the using the software and everything afterwards was done too. Like, oh yeah, the pictures are in there, it's all good to go. Like, it's one of those things where I sometimes, when I work with some VAs too, I've hey, don't forget to do this, and it's already done. And so now that's my fault. I didn't even check, and that makes you feel really good.
Yeah, that's amazing. Sweet, dude. Well, I appreciate you jumping on, sharing your experience. If people want to get to know you or look you up or stay in Detroit, like, what's the best place for people to find you?
So it's the website, and I'm putting something together right now. So margins in Detroit, sometimes they don't work out for management. They don't make sense. I do mostly co-hosting, and for some folks, it makes sense for them to manage the property themselves. So I'm putting together this kind of checklist on the things they have to be aware of, because it doesn't mean I don't want to work with that person. It just means right now it probably doesn't make sense. So they can go to the website. My website is www.greatstays, greatstays.co. And then they can do /checklist, and they can look at that. And that's a good way to start. I also have other tabs on there if they want property management or just to reach out. All the info's on there.
Awesome. So greatstays.co is where you can find Alex and everything he has to offer. So go check it out. And if you're in Detroit, definitely stay with him. And I can tell from experience that he's doing a great job. So why not stay with him? Awesome, man. Well, appreciate you being our clients. You've been working together for a long time, so it's been absolutely awesome. And yeah, once you get your laundromat up and running, like, let's do a follow-up podcast, because I'd be interested in kind of learning how that process was for you. So keep it posted.
That'd be great. I'll try to get pics and everything too, so you can see the process.
Yeah, that'd be amazing, man. Awesome, dude. Thanks for jumping on. And to listeners, thanks for listening to this podcast. And we will be back soon with another podcast, another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. Until then.